Hey, it's John from Alloy 211. Today's video is a further disassembly of the JC Higgins Model 60 Sears & Roebuck Model 583.600 12-gauge semi-automatic shotgun. This video was actually requested in the comments of the video I originally did on this shotgun, and fortunately enough, the owner of the shotgun allowed me to borrow it to do a bit further disassembly on it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we'll be doing is taking off the magazine cap, which is here at the end of the fore end. You will need a flat-headed screwdriver of the appropriate size. As you can see, it is a flat-headed screw right there. And you want to make sure that you maintain a grip on this cap, as it does hold the magazine spring in place, and if you don't keep a good grip on it as you loosen it, it will shoot across the room like one of those prank peanut butter spring snake cans. And it's really hilarious when that happens to someone else, but not with you, and especially with this little part going shooting across the room on a shotgun made in the 50s. It's not yours. Anyway, then go ahead and remove the magazine spring, and then go ahead and remove the fore end. It just slides right off the end, and that will expose the magazine tube, the gas control system, the gas piston, the action bar, and the recoil spring. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to disassemble the gas system too much further. I will be able to take the gas control rings off, but in order to remove the gas piston, the action rod, and the recoil spring, you need to be able to remove the magazine tube, and it just screws out. Problem being that I don't have the special 4-lugged tool to go into the magazine tube, much like I didn't have the special tool to adjust the gas rings. But the gas rings you can adjust, and you can get it apart without the right tool, whereas the magazine tube I could not. In fact, I bent this punch in an attempt to get it out, and then because I had bent it, I'd actually bent it quite a bit more than this, but I managed to bend it back trying to get it out. But then I decided to switch to an Allen wrench, so I didn't bend my punch all up anymore. Although I'm still going to probably need a new punch. But anyway, so yeah, I applied enough force to that to bend those significantly, and this isn't my shotgun. If it were my shotgun, I would have probably been willing to apply more force and to try another method that may have damaged the magazine tube. But given it's not my shotgun, I really didn't want to do that, and the owner definitely does not want me to do that. So that's the furthest I can disassemble it. But I'll kind of go over what you would do if you could get that out, because the barrel also screws in. So it's really not that complicated. If you can get this to unscrew, you want to screw this, remove that. As you do that, the gas piston and the recoil spring will come off, and then you can remove the action bar once you've removed the trigger mechanism and the bolt. They'll just slide out of the front, and then you can remove the barrel. Like I said, I really did try, and I really applied a lot of force to that, and any more force and I could have broken it. And like I said, it's not my shotgun, so I'm not going to do that. But what we can take apart is the gas adjustment system here, which this is not where it was when I originally when the owner gave me the shotgun back to disassemble, because you need a special tool to really adjust this properly, or to make the tool to do it without that, and to use, say, a flathead screwdriver, or what I use, one of my favorite little tools to use, a Mosin tool. If you use one of those, it is tedious if you want to do it carefully and not mar this nut up, which someone had already done that on this one. This had been like this before I started. So, but anyway, I didn't want to have to do all that on camera, so I just left it only partially screwed on. Now, to kind of illustrate, well, I'll wait till we put it back together so I can show you how this works. Okay, if we can get it, there we go. Now, there wasn't really any buildup or anything in between the washers here, just on the face of this washer, which interacts with the gas ports on the gas block. As you can see, buildup. And someone had actually flipped this around and had it in here the other way at some point. And I'm going to clean that up before I put it back together, but I wanted you to see that it does in fact get buildup there, but not anywhere else really on those. Oh, I don't want to spill those all over the place. Set those over there. Oh, also, you want to maybe go ahead and pour that out. That is the plug for the magazine tube. Because let's say you are messing with the shotgun like this and it falls out and rolls across the floor and then you step on it, then you have to buy a new one of those, and that's no fun. Okay, there are the gas ports on the front of the block. You have 3 on each side. As you can see, there are 3 more. Now, in order to clean those out, just go ahead and lock the action back. Those ports do go all the way through as they act with the front of the gas piston here. And what I just used a little metal twist tie. Still had the rubber on it. It just so happened to be the exact right diameter to fit in here. And what I was kind of surprised by, and you want to make sure you push it all the way through. That way you're clearing it all the way to the other side. And I don't need to do these as I've already done it. But what I was surprised by was that they looked pretty clear on both sides. And I'm not going to try to show you the inside. They do, in fact, go all the way through. But there's really no good way to get it on camera. I tried earlier and it did not work out. So anyway, I already cleaned those out, and I was really surprised by how much buildup was actually inside there. Because it didn't really look dirty at all. But it definitely was partially plugged. And it did function. When I took this gun to the range, you can watch the video on that. It did function properly and fine with everything I fired except the buckshot. The military grade buckshot, the casing was too long. So that didn't eject, but it had nothing to do with the gas system. It was just too long once it, fired. Anyway, I cleaned a lot of carbon buildup off of the magazine tube. So hopefully that should all work better, and some that was on the face of the piston. Somewhere else you want to check, if you can't get this out, as I couldn't, you still want to make sure that you don't have a bunch of carbon buildup in here inside this ring, because there was a significant amount that I had to get in there and scrape out. So like I said, it didn't affect the functionality of the shotgun, but it would eventually. So now we're going to go ahead and release, which if you didn't see the earlier video, here is the bolt release. And go ahead and release the bolt, go forward, and now we'll go ahead and pull the trigger group out. Now I will take a small punch, and I just like to give these a tap. They do kind of tend to want to stick, so, and I'll probably have to tap them out a little more when they get to the other side. Not all shotguns are like this. Some of them you can just push with a punch and they punch or push right out. This one doesn't seem to be like that, so it'd help if I weren't using my wavy punch to try to do that, but we'll see if I can. Yep, that one came out. And that one came out. Hey, look at that. Both came out. That was pretty simple. And then, set that back down. You have a trigger group with lifter, hammer, and I'm not going to take the trigger group apart because there are a lot of little springs in here. And again, not my shotgun, so I really want to make sure when I give this back to the owner, it fires properly and does everything that it should. And I would hate to put one of these springs back in here incorrectly, and it may even function kind of for a while. If you put a spring in incorrectly, it could still function until it has broken the spring or worn it out in whatever way it shouldn't have been in there. And then I guess I'd probably have to fix it since I broke it. So anyway, there is the trigger assembly, trigger group. Now when you have this open like this, let me zoom out. In order to remove the bolt, you need to bring the charging handle back to here. As you can see, you have little notches that the charging handle fits into the bolt, the bottom portion of the bolt. Pardon me. And to try to use this to hold this back is a pain in the butt. What's a lot easier is if you just grab the gas piston and use that, because it gives you a lot more of a mechanical advantage on this big piston rather than this little handle. In order to remove the bolt, you lift up on the bottom portion of it here to remove it from the charging handle. Then you let the charging handle go forward. Then you can just pull the bolt out of the back. And then you have the bolt. You have the extractor, the ejector, firing pin, and the bottom portion of the bolt right there. And that's held on there by that ramped portion there. Now we'll go ahead and pull the firing pin and the ejector out. I find this easier to do if you hold a punch with your fingers there and then push back on the ejector like that. I'd say it's easier to do, and when you're trying to do it on camera, it's not that easy. And where is my bigger punch? Ah, there you are. Okay, and then you go ahead and just push this pin right, ooh, get you back in focus. Right there, there's a pin right there. There we go, pin right there. You just go ahead and push that down while you're applying pressure to the firing pin in the ejector. Just push it down, fall out the bottom. And as you do that, the spring pressure on the firing pin and the ejector really isn't that high, so they're not going to go shooting comically out of the back of the bolt, or at least they shouldn't unless you're really compressing them. Once you remove those, set those down, and go ahead and remove that block. Just slides right out. As you can see, like a pardon me, like a lot of bolts, the firing pin holds this in place by going through the center. Go ahead and leave that out for now. And now we're going to go ahead and remove the ejector, which is just held in by this pin right here. And you can get to the bottom of it right there. And it's actually got a space machined into the front of the bolt face where that slides into. So now, before, I could just push it hard enough that it popped out when I did it by hand. Oh, it's not going to do it now, of course. So you just take, I'm going to try to do this on camera in the air. See if we can, because it doesn't take a lot of force unless you're pounding on the bolt. So let's go ahead and just set it down here. Try to zoom in. I don't think I'm going to really be able to get too good of a shot of that. Trying to, because it doesn't really take much. As I said before, I'd done it before just by pressing on it. There we go. Now I should be able to press it the rest of the way out by hand. And when you're doing this, also again, to avoid comic springs flying out, keep pressure on the extractor. Okay, maybe I do need to tap it out just a wee bit more. Just tiny little taps. Tiny little taps. So now it should. There we go. Not just, well, here. You didn't get to see that, so I'll show you now. There you go. Now just take and push. It pushes right out. Pull the pin out. Set it somewhere you're not going to lose it. Let the extractor out. There you go. There's the extractor channel, there's the extractor spring, and there is the holds it in place. Now I go ahead and just put this back together, making sure to get that spring into its little seat. You know, and the thing is, it would probably function if you didn't get it into that seat, but it's going to eventually crush that spring. Now this pin, eventually, is beveled on that end. So that is the end that goes into the bolt face right there. As you can see, it's beveled on the end. So that goes there. As you can see, it's actually got some cuts there on the top to hold it in place once you've pushed it in. Sometimes it does require a bit of a tap to go home. So go ahead and set it down on the table. As we've seen, trying to do it in the air in front of the camera, not the best option. And you don't need to bang that in there or anything. You just need to give it a little tap. It'll be flush, and you'll see that it bottoms out in this channel right here. So that's back together. Now we'll go ahead and put this back in. And then the firing pin. Firing pin just goes right here in the center. Makes sense, center fire, right in the center. And then the ejector. As you can see, you have a much longer channel on the ejector than the firing pin. So you go ahead and you put those in there. And now that block won't fall out because you put the firing pin in place. Now, see, I'm about to do this, and I already told you that you should use a punch to push the firing pin in. It just makes it easier if you do it that way because you can hold it then you should really have the pin at the ready. You want to make sure that those are lined up. You don't want to push the firing pin in too far or the ejector. And you just push that up, take pressure off of it, make sure it's pushed in there all the way. Okay, that's good. It's in place. Oh, there's that. Then the other portion of the bolt, just so you can see it's machined to slide right onto there. Slides right on there. There you go. Easy as you please. Do this. Flip that back over. Zoom out just a tad. Maybe a tad more. There we go. Then again, not roll the receiver around on a punch. Grab the gas piston. Well, okay, actually, grab the bolt, and when you set it in, you'll notice that this has a bit of movement here, that you can lift it up once the bolt is set down into the receiver, and that little bit of movement is going to allow you to get it into those notches. So let's go ahead and put the bolt in, and when you do, you want to make sure you have this in the right place, the ejector, because it does kind of slide down in there, and you can't see anything I'm doing. So I will try to do this a little differently so that you can actually see, maybe. There we go. Just dropping it down in there. There you go. As you can see, the ejector is in place, everything is in place. Now, well, let's see, we'll try that. Now I'm going to go ahead, grab that gas piston again, and push it back a bit. Now you'll notice that this needs to be in this opening, or else you're not going to. If it gets pushed back too far, you're not going to be able to lift this up. That is really hard to get a good shot of, but we'll try that. Okay, now I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to push the action bar back, and once you get that up, you can slide it back and it will stay up. There you go. As you can see, it just dropped in and slides forward, and it's back together. Like I said, it's really not that difficult once you get down how to do it. So I mean, if you're trying to do it right here, I can tell you right now that that doesn't work very well. So when I first took it apart, I didn't really want to put too much pressure on this. I really didn't know for sure. It wasn't my shotgun again, so I did use that, but yeah, it is infinitely easier to use the gas piston. So now we'll go ahead and put the rest of it back together. It goes together just the way it came apart. Trigger group goes back in, and you want to make sure that the hammer is cocked. Makes it a lot easier to get in there. The only kind of issue I had getting this back in was actually this pin right here at the back tends to want to push out to one side because there's a spring clip right there, well, a round spring. Maybe. There we go. As you can see, it's got that spring. It tends to want to pull it out to one side. So as you put it in, you want to just make sure it doesn't get caught on the outside of the receiver. There you go. Slides back in. Take your two pins. Put one in the front and one in the back. And the one in the front didn't really want to tap in, so I'll just use the back of a plastic screwdriver so I don't mar anything. There we go. It's back in place. Now, put the, oh, you want to drop the magazine spring on the floor apparently. Put the magazine plunger back in the magazine tube. And then, after you've retrieved your spring from the floor, once you've retrieved your spring from the floor, go ahead and insert it into the magazine tube. Boop. And then you want to make sure the end of your spring is sitting down in the cup for this. Well, I guess after you put the forend back on, because you don't want to put this back on until you put the forend back on. And you know, you might also want to put the gas control rings back on. That might be a good idea. Something else I want to touch on is this is how you adjust the gas system on this shotgun. You loosen or tighten these in order to adjust the amount of gas that actually interacts with the piston. And I did take pictures and measurements of this before I took it apart, so I know where this particular shotgun was at, because it was functioning the way the owner would like, so I want to make sure I set it back to where it was. So I took measurements and pictures to make sure I do get it set back. Now I'm going to use this screwdriver to kind of illustrate what happens when you don't have this tightened down very far. You know, when you fire, the gas will obviously go through the barrel, go through the gas ports, and push the piston back. And depending on how tight or loose these are, it will put gas going forward. And obviously the tighter you make these, the less amount this is going to be allowed to move. This is about as loose as it can get, so it'll let a lot more gas go forward and a lot less gas go back against the piston. So you'd want to use that to adjust it to either function with the rounds that you're using, or to adjust it to where it just functions with the rounds that you generally use. That way you're not overgassing the system. But like I said, I'm going to just adjust this one back to where it was, and opposed to trying to adjust it down, because I'm not going to fire the shotgun, and I want to make sure it works, especially given that it is not my shotgun, which I think I've made that point a couple times. Anyway, put the forend back on after you've put the gas system back in place. And if you're just taking it apart to clean it, I mean, I would say adjust it back to where it was before you took it apart, because if it functioned before that point, that's what I would do. And really, if it were my shotgun, I would go ahead, and again, you know, when you put this in here, the magazine spring is pushing against it, so make sure you keep a good, solid, constant pressure on it. Let's go ahead and take your flathead screwdriver, screw this back into place, and I'm actually not going to tighten that quite all the way back up, because I need to adjust that gas system. You know, so it functions. Again, don't want to give him a non-functioning shotgun back. And there you go. It's back together, functioning. Well, I mean, I'm assuming it's functioning. I'm not going to test it right here in the basement. I think that'd make a noise and a mess that I really don't want to clean up, especially right here on a holiday. So anyway, again, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found it somewhat instructive, at least on how to take the shotgun apart as much as we could today. And again, thanks to the owner of the shotgun for allowing me to use it for this video. If you liked the video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you watch some of my other videos and you enjoy those too, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe. So have a happy 2019 and have a good day.